Is a founder higher than a CEO? Is a founder higher than a CEO? Well, that depends. The answer could be, yes, in some circumstances or situations, and/or the answer could be, no, equal, and/or, one in the same person, in other circumstances or situations. Below are just a few examples of how the founder can be higher, equal to, lower than and/or one in the same person with regards to the CEO, and, vice versa. In situations where the founder is also the CEO, then obviously they are one in the same person. In situations where the founder is the chairman of the board of managers directors and the CEO was hired into the company, then the founder, as the chairman of the board of managers directors, is higher than the CEO. In situations where the founder does not hold any position on the board of managers directors, and is either an executive report to the CEO, whether by choice, or because she or he was replaced as CEO and given a different executive position in the company, such as CMO, CCO, CTO, CRO, etc., by the board of managers directors, or where the founder is no longer part of the company at all, then the CEO is higher than the founder. In situations where the founder is the chairman of the board of managers directors and the CEO also sits on the board of managers directors and has equal voting power, say to that of the founder, then that would make them pretty much equal in my eyes, although by far and very much definitely not an ideal and/or productive scenario to have, and not a highly recommended one either. In situations where the CEO is also the chairman of the board of managers directors and the founder either holds some other seat on the board, some other executive position within the company, and/or both some other seat on the board along with some other executive position, other than CEO, then the founder is lower than the CEO. There are also situations and/or circumstances where because of equity percentages held, voting power, or other specific details, agreements etc., in any contracts, operating agreements and so on, as well as any other key positions held in relation to the company by and/or between the founder and/or the CEO, where things could go one way or the other in terms of who is higher than the other, and/or even make the founder and CEO equals, if they are not one in the same person. Pretty much it all really comes down to how the company is structured, who holds what seats, positions, titles, equity percentages, voting power, say in decisions etc., and whether or not the founder is at all any part of the company in any capacity, or whether or not the founder and CEO is one in the same person. My answer is pretty simplified and by no means exhaustive compared to what others could probably give, but I hope that it helps you and your understanding and/or situation. Why is Bob with the company? I asked myself. He just seems to sit in the corner doing nothing. Bob was the founder of the startup I had just joined as VP Marketing. Bob was no longer the CEO, but, for some strange reason, he was still with the company, doing what looked to be nothing. As I spent more time at the company I came to realize that Bob had no real responsibilities. It just made no sense to me why was Bob still at the company. But Bob did have one thing going for him. Bob was the technical genius behind the company, and investors are loath to fire the technical genius. About 2 months later, Jack, the CEO, was fired by the board. The board hired a new CEO, Dave. And yet, Bob remained at the company, still without any real responsibilities. The crazy thing was the company had a VP engineering and the company had a CTO. The company didn't need Bob anymore. Sometimes a founder is kept at a company because the investors view the founder as a safety net. Bob was the proverbial security blanket for the investors. If everything went wrong technically, then Bob could pick up the pieces. The problem was that the company's problems weren't the technology, but the business side of the equation. That was part of the reason I was brought in. I started digging into the company's business. The more I dug, the more concerned I got. The company was doing business with all the major telecom suppliers of the day. That was the good news. The bad news was that Cisco and the other customers were only using the company's product for prototyping, not for production. It was a house of cards that was ready to fall. The board came to the same conclusion at the same time I did, so they fired the CEO. Sometimes a founder is kept a company because the investors are too scared to get rid of the founder. Years after this experience, I was interviewing to be CEO of another company where the founder had been pushed out of the CEO role. Yet again, the founder was still at the company. The company had already cycled through 2 other CEOs when I met with them. As I met with the board members, it became clear that the founder was the problem. Each board member used words like mercurial to describe the founder. "He's brilliant, but you're going to need to learn to work with him," they said. It sounded like a no-win situation to me. And this was confirmed after I met him. Oh my. The founder might be brilliant, but he was also a jerk.